Daniel. I grew up in Chicago, the kind of city where people learn early on to stand their ground, but also to keep their head clear when the noise around them gets too loud. That lesson, choosing calm over chaos, ended up being the thing that saved me years later when my marriage fell apart. I met Emily in the most ordinary way possible, at a friend's birthday dinner. She had this easy laugh, the kind that made other people lean in, wanting to be a part of it. Her long brown hair and eyes that seemed to change color depending on the light were beautiful, but what pulled me in was her confidence. She didn't just walk into a room. She knew how to take it over. Back then, I mistook that for strength. Our first years together were good enough. We traveled, we built routines, we had dinners with friends where she'd tell the stories and I'd smile and fill in the missing details. Over time, her confidence sharpened into criticism, and her energy became a series of demands. Nothing was ever enough. If I worked late, she said I didn't care about her. If I stayed home, she said I lacked ambition. The real cracks showed in the way she treated money. She grew up used to getting her way, and in her mind, money was just another tool to make that happen. I believed in planning, saving, protecting what we had. She believed in spending as if life were a race to prove something. I remember one night, we argued because she bought a designer bag that cost nearly $3,000, almost as much as I had just saved for the down payment on a second car. Daniel, she said, twirling the strap of that bag like it was a trophy. You act like money is more important than happiness. No, I told her. I act like money is the difference between security and fear. You're confusing happiness with distraction. She rolled her eyes. That was Emily, dismissive of anything she didn't want to hear. And then came the nights out. At first, I thought nothing of it. Dinners with coworkers, late yoga classes, book club. But one Friday, I called the restaurant where she said she was having drinks. The hostess paused and told me no one by that name had been seated. That was the night I stopped believing her stories. It wasn't one big discovery, not at first. It was a series of little lies that piled up. A text left unanswered until morning. Receipts for things she couldn't explain. A hotel charge on her card, even though she had supposedly stayed with her sister. I confronted her once, calm but direct. She cried, swore it was nothing, turned it around on me. You don't trust me anymore, do you? She whispered, wiping fake tears. I want to, I said, and I meant it. But trust isn't something you beg for. It's something you protect. By the time I caught her, really caught her, it almost felt like a relief. A blurry but unmistakable photo sent by a friend showed Emily at a rooftop bar, holding hands with a man I had never seen before and leaning in too close for it to be innocent. That night, I packed a bag and slept at my brother's place. When I told her I was done, she didn't beg. She didn't even apologize. She smirked and said, "You'll come back. You always do." But this time I didn't. The divorce should have been simple. We had a prenup, drawn up before we even got married. I thought that would protect both of us. Clear rules, no surprises. But Emily was never interested in fairness. She dragged the process out for months, filing pointless motions, demanding delays, trying to squeeze me dry not with money, but with exhaustion. My lawyer, Mark, kept reminding me, stay calm. Don't give her what she wants. What she wanted wasn't money, not at first. What she wanted was control, the satisfaction of watching me squirm. But I didn't squirm. I refused to fight her with fists, or shouting, or cheap revenge. That wasn't who I was. If strength meant anything, it was the ability to remain yourself when someone else was trying to tear you apart. And that's when Emily played her boldest card yet. She walked into our final divorce hearing visibly pregnant. The months before the final hearing felt like walking through a swamp. Slow, suffocating, and designed to wear me down. Emily seemed to enjoy dragging her feet. Every time I thought we were close to resolution, she'd file a new motion, demand more time, or switch lawyers. By the time we finally reached the courtroom date, she was on her third attorney, a kid who looked like he had graduated law school the week before. His suit was a size too big, his briefcase almost empty. I almost pitied him. Almost. My own lawyer, Mark, was the opposite. He wasn't flashy or aggressive. He was the kind of man who smiled politely, waited for his turn, then dismantled his opponent piece by piece. I didn't like lawyers in general, but I respected him. He told me early on, patience wins more cases than shouting. Let her bury herself, Daniel. Just don't hand her the shovel. It sounded like a metaphor at the time. I didn't know how literal it would become. The closer we got to the hearing, the more pressure came not from Emily, but from my own family. My mother called me one evening, her voice weary. "Daniel, maybe you should just settle," she said. "End this quietly. You don't want to drag it out anymore." I rubbed my forehead. "Mom, we signed a prenup. She's not entitled to a penny more." "She's pregnant," Mom said softly. The silence that followed was heavier than the words themselves. I closed my eyes. "Not with my child." "How can you be so sure?" she asked. I almost laughed. "How could I not? Because I haven't shared a bed with her in nearly a year, Mom. And because the man she's seeing isn't exactly a secret anymore." There was hesitation on the other end of the line, the kind that made me realize my own mother was struggling to separate the woman Emily pretended to be from the one she actually was. "Even so," she whispered, "do you really want the world to see you fighting a pregnant woman in court?" That hit me harder than I expected. I had spent months clinging to the belief that I was fighting for fairness, for truth, not for vengeance. Yet here was my mother, a woman who had always believed in me, suggesting that appearances mattered more than reality. I took a deep breath. "Mom, if Emily really believed this child was mine, she wouldn't need tricks. I'd step up. I always have. That's the difference between us. She schemes. I take responsibility." Mom went quiet, then sighed. "I just don't want this to get uglier." "It already has," I said. Still, her doubt lingered in my mind. That was Emily's true power, not her lies, but the shadow of uncertainty she left behind. When the day finally came, I walked into the courthouse calm, almost detached. Emily made her entrance 10 minutes late, like she was walking onto a stage instead of into a courtroom. One hand rested dramatically on her rounded belly, the other brushing her hair back as though a camera might be waiting. She didn't look at me right away. Instead, she scanned the room, gauging reactions. She wanted sympathy before a single word was spoken. And judging by the side glances from a few people in the back row, she almost got it. But not from me. I kept my posture steady, my face unreadable. I didn't need to roll my eyes or scoff. I knew Mark had prepared everything. We had the documents, the timeline, and the photographs. Emily thought she was improvising, but I knew we were working from a script she had written herself, and I had already memorized the ending. That's the thing about manipulation. It works until someone stops playing along. She took her seat across the aisle, her lawyer fumbling with a stack of unmarked folders. I caught the way she shot me a quick side glance, like she was daring me to react, daring me to sweat. But I didn't, because deep down, I had already won. Emily thought her pregnancy was the ace up her sleeve. She didn't realize it was a time bomb ticking loudly enough for everyone to hear. And all it would take was one question from the judge to blow her whole plan apart. The air inside the courtroom was thick and heavier than I expected. Unlike the sterile, polished scenes in movies, the air smelled faintly of old paper and stale coffee, and every cough or shuffle of feet echoed too loudly. I sat at the petitioner's table with Mark beside me, his calm expression giving nothing away. Across the aisle, Emily played her part to perfection. She settled into her chair with a dramatic sigh, one hand resting protectively over her belly. Her lawyer, the young one with nervous hands, fumbled through his folders like a magician searching for a trick he didn't have. The judge, a man in his early 60s with thinning gray hair, entered and called the room to order. His voice carried the weight of someone who had seen every kind of lie and drama pass through his courtroom. Emily's lawyer stood first, his voice trembling just enough to betray his inexperience. "Your Honor," he began, "my client has been placed in an impossible situation. She is pregnant, unemployed, and struggling emotionally and financially as a direct result of this prolonged divorce. We ask that the court show compassion and ensure she is supported during this difficult time." Emily sniffled on cue, dabbing her eyes with a tissue that I doubted had seen a single real tear. She turned her head just enough to glance at the audience, as though waiting for their sympathy. I kept my face neutral. Mark waited until the silence stretched, then stood. His voice was calm, steady, and sharpened by precision. "Your Honor, while we sympathize with Ms. Reed's situation, there are facts that must be addressed before the court considers any requests for financial support. First and foremost, who is the father of this child?" The words cut through the room like a blade. Emily's lawyer froze, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Emily's smile faltered for the first time. My client believes it is the petitioners, the young lawyer finally managed. Believes? Mark raised an eyebrow. So there is no proof. The judge leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Ms. Reed, have you had a paternity test done? Emily's lips parted, closed, then parted again. For once, she had no script. I assumed. You assumed? The judge repeated, unimpressed. Ms. Reed, is there any evidence to suggest the petitioner is the father? Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Not at this time, Your Honor. Mark didn't flinch. Your Honor, we have strong evidence that the child cannot be my client's. He laid a set of photographs on the table, angled so the judge and opposing counsel could see them. The photos, taken just 2 months after Emily and I separated, showed her on vacation in Miami, hand in hand with another man, their lips locked in a kiss that left no room for doubt. And Mark continued smoothly, sliding another folder forward. Medical records confirm Ms. Reed's first positive pregnancy test occurred nearly 4 months after she and my client last shared a household. The timeline makes it medically impossible for my client to be the father. Emily's face crumpled. Her lawyer's shoulders slumped, his career-defining case collapsing in real time. The judge let out a slow breath, his expression turning from skeptical to stern. Ms. Reed, this court does not tolerate deception. Based on the evidence presented, there is no legal foundation for financial support. The prenuptial agreement stands. You will not be receiving alimony or additional compensation. The words landed like a hammer. Emily gasped, clutching the edge of the table. But Your Honor, this isn't fair. I'm about to have a baby, and he just gets to walk away? The judge's patience had run out. Ms. Reed, he said firmly, this court does not make judgments based on emotional appeals. Unless paternity is established, your pregnancy has no bearing on these proceedings. Her voice rose to a desperate pitch. You're really going to do this to me, Daniel? To your own child? The room went silent. Even her lawyer looked horrified she had said it out loud. I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost gentle. Emily, do you really want to go on record accusing me of being the father? Because we can order a paternity test right now. Her eyes flickered, her mask cracking completely. She looked down, then away. Everyone in that courtroom understood what her silence meant. The judge turned to the clerk. This hearing is concluded. The gavel struck, and just like that, her scheme was over. The sound of the gavel still echoed in my ears as people began to file out of the courtroom. For a moment, I sat still, letting the weight of it all sink in. Months of delays, accusations, and mind games, finished in the space of a single question and a few sheets of paper. Mark closed his folder with quiet satisfaction. Told you patience wins, he murmured. I nodded, grateful but too drained to celebrate. Winning against someone you once loved never feels like victory. It feels like surviving a storm that never should have started. My mother walked up behind me, her hand light on my shoulder. You did well, she whispered, her voice a mix of relief and sorrow. We left together, Mark walking a few steps ahead. The hallway outside was crowded with people from other cases, their voices blending into a low hum. I almost thought Emily might slip away quietly, but I should have known better. Her heels struck the marble floor like gunshots as she stormed toward me, face flushed, hands trembling. You're a monster, she spat. You let me sit there and humiliate myself in front of everyone. I turned to face her slowly, keeping my voice level. No, Emily. You humiliated yourself. I just refused to play along. Her jaw tightened, eyes flashing with that same fire I had once mistaken for passion. You set me up. I shook my head. No, you set yourself up. I just let the truth speak. For a second, I thought she might slap me. Her hand twitched, and her body coiled like a spring. But then she pivoted, turning to my mother. And you? Emily hissed, her voice sharp. You're just going to stand there and watch him do this to me? After everything I gave him? My mother crossed her arms, her expression harder than I'd ever seen it. I'm not okay with what he did to you, Emily, she said. Emily's eyes lit with false hope, until Mom finished. I'm not okay with what you did to him. You fooled us once. Never again. The words hit Emily harder than anything I could have said. For a moment, her lips quivered, and I thought she might actually cry. But the mask snapped back into place, this time twisted with rage. I hope you rot, she snarled, stepping closer. I hope you lose everything, Daniel. I hope you choke on your precious dignity. Her voice carried, drawing glances from people nearby. Two court officers approached, their presence sudden and commanding. "Ms. Reed," one of them said firmly. "Come with us, please." Emily whipped around, her face draining of color. "What? Why?" "The judge has requested an inquiry into potential perjury and fraud," the officer replied. "You'll need to answer some questions." No, this is ridiculous. He's lying. But they were already guiding her back toward the courtroom. Her protests echoed down the hallway, growing weaker as the doors shut behind her. I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Mark patted my shoulder, his calm demeanor unshaken. "That," he said, "was satisfying." I gave a small, tired smile. Yeah, it was. The truth was, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished, like I had been carrying a weight for years, and finally, it was gone. My mother looked at me, her eyes searching. "Are you okay?" "I will be," I said. And I meant it. Because strength, I realized, wasn't about crushing someone else. It was about refusing to let them change who you are. Emily had screamed, lied, twisted, and clawed, trying to drag me into the same chaos that consumed her. But I never let her. That was my victory. The weeks after the hearing felt strangely quiet. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up to chaos. No more late-night phone calls from Emily demanding money. No more surprise filings. No more manipulation. Just silence. But silence doesn't mean nothing was happening. I heard bits and pieces from Mark. The judge hadn't let Emily's performance slide. He recommended a review for perjury and fraud. That meant court officers were combing through her claims, her filings, her financial statements. For someone who had always relied on smoke and mirrors, exposure was the one thing she couldn't handle. Her lawyer, the young kid, dropped her almost immediately. He probably realized his first big case had turned into a career stain. Without representation, Emily floundered. The court fined her for wasting resources. Her applications for emergency financial aid were denied because agencies require proof of paternity. She couldn't provide any. And then came the fallout in her personal life. One evening, Mark called to update me. His tone carried the faintest trace of amusement. "Her boyfriend walked out," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "The one from Miami?" "Apparently, yes." Once the photos came out in court, he started doing the math. Realized he wasn't the only one she had been with. Suddenly, he wasn't so sure about fatherhood anymore. I pictured the scene, the shock on his face, Emily scrambling for excuses. It almost made me feel sorry for the guy. Almost. Emily had always believed she could juggle lies forever. But lies are like glass balls. You can keep them in the air for a while, but eventually, one drops, and then they all shatter. About 3 months after the hearing, I got a text from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy." It was Emily. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, "I am. Thanks for asking." And I blocked the number. It wasn't anger that made me block her. It was peace. For years, I had let her voice fill every corner of my life, demanding, accusing, manipulating. But not anymore. My silence wasn't punishment. It was freedom. In the months that followed, I rebuilt. Not everything at once. Healing doesn't happen like flipping a switch. Some nights I still thought about the way she used to laugh, about the life we almost had if she'd chosen differently. But regret doesn't change reality. What had changed was me. I learned that strength isn't about fists or shouting matches. Strength is about not letting someone else's lies turn you bitter. It's about holding steady while someone tries to drag you into the storm. Emily lost not because I destroyed her, but because I refused to destroy myself. That was the lesson. And when I finally looked in the mirror months later, I didn't see the man she had tried to break. I saw someone standing taller, not because of revenge, but because of resilience. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Life has a way of testing you in places you least expect. For me, it wasn't about fists or shouting matches in a courtroom. It was about standing still while someone tried to drag me into chaos and refusing to lose myself in the process. Emily thought she could twist sympathy into currency, that a performance could outweigh truth. And maybe for a while, she believed her own lies. But truth has patience. It doesn't need to shout, it only needs time. I didn't win because I fought harder. I won because I stayed true to who I was and didn't let anger dictate my choices. I knew strength isn't measured by how hard you hit, but by how steady you stand when the ground shakes beneath you. Emily lost her case, her credibility, even the people who once believed her. I didn't have to destroy her. She did that all on her own. My victory was simpler, walking away with my integrity intact. And now, when I look back, I realize that's the real power in any fight. Not revenge, not proving someone wrong, but proving to yourself that you can walk through fire without letting it turn you to ash. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this: strength is not in fists. It's in character. It's in refusing to bend when life tests you. And it's in walking away knowing you kept your dignity, no matter what someone tried to take from you.